if there's anybody that I ever wanted to be or wanted to teach my kids how to be like, it was Anne. And it was because of that, just the ability to see the beauty in the world around you, the ability to imagine, to use your imagination to overcome any obstacles that you faced, the hard work ethic that she had, and the way that she inspired other people to learn, to grow. Hi, welcome back to Weatherford Daze. I am Rachel. This is Jason. We are a married couple just shooting the breeze, chatting about books
Yep.
and the movies we love and our family and how it all interconnects and works together. Last week we talked about fated mates, soulmates. This week we're going to talk about kindred spirits.
Bosom
Ooh,
friends. No?
yes.
That will explain what
Indeed.
that means. If you don't,
If that didn't give it enough of a hint.
we will initiate you into the secret society of Anne of Green Gables lovers. Aficionados. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I think we've been talking a lot about a lot of my childhood favorites over the past couple of weeks.
Very nostalgic. George MacDonald.
Yeah, George MacDonald. We've talked about several, but Anne has had a special place in my heart for a long time. I think that she's another one that, just like the George MacDonald books, I read as a child and I read to our children. Those and Tolkien and several others. So, Anne,
Mm-hmm.
when I was thinking about what do I want to talk about with Anne, because there's so much about her that is inspiring to so many people. I was thinking, if I were to tell somebody that had never heard of Anne of Green Gables what it was about, what would I say? Anne of Green Gables is the story of a young girl named Anne. She's an orphan who comes to live in the town of Avonlea, Prince Edward Island.
Mm-hmm.
She comes to live with Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert, who are elderly siblings. They, as they're getting up in years, they just have decided that they're going to adopt an orphan boy to help Matthew around their farm. They live on their family farm. When Matthew goes to pick up the young orphan boy that they've sent off for, lo and behold, it's not a boy, it's a girl. And not just any normal girl. It's a young girl with huge eyes, red hair, and the most incredible tongue that most anybody at that time had ever seen on a child. She was somebody that the way that she spoke, the earnestness that she spoke with, the way that she just, everything was so big and so important. She took everything so seriously, I guess is the way, and but it captivated everybody that she came into contact with. They either thought that she was a little odd and just a strange little thing, or they kind of just immediately fell in love with her. Oddly enough, the ones that fell in love with her were the ones that became her kindred spirits, the ones that got her, that connected with her, that understood her, and that she could understand. But the thing about Anne was that it was her imagination. She was able to look at the world and see a thing that, even though she was an orphan, she had experienced trauma and hardship, she still was so excited to discover the world, to see the world. That was kind of the thing that I wanted to kind of focus in on here for a little bit, is just how inspiring her imagination was to me and to so many people. I think everybody that picks up the books, which they're by Ellen Montgomery, Lucy Maud Montgomery, were written in, I think it was published in 1908.
That's what I was thinking.
Has never stopped inspiring people since then.
It's never stopped being out of print.
That's true.
Well, factoid. The thing that struck me is that she lived in a world of poetry and creativity, and everybody around her was very practical. What do you need education for? Oh, that's when the new teacher comes into town, it's kind of like, oh, there's another dreamer, and of course, kindred spirit. It seems that everybody is very bottom line. Like, we're here, we have crops, we have this thing we're trying to do, and it's very practical. And she kind of brings something different. Sometimes we need a little bit of impracticality in our lives, and that's what she brought to the town that she was in. I think that sorely needed by the people that surrounded her, and that's what I kind of took from it. And I thought that way she talked and the way she thought, at least in the version that I saw on TV, was just, I thought it was funny. The way people reacted, like, what a strange child, and I was like, no, she's awesome, she's great. And I thought that was the we call it the dichotomy of how people reacted to her, and her way of looking at things. I thought was funny.
Hmm.
There's a lot of humor in that to me.
That's one of the first things she says to Matthew on the way home. She starts kind of renaming all of the different places, like the White Way of Delight, and she changes Barry's Pond to the Lake of Shining Waters. She goes, "It would be lovely to sleep in a wild cherry tree, all white with bloom in the moonshine, don't you think?" And of course, most adults are going to sit there and go, "Yeah, no, that's not really practical."
Well, you could
It wouldn't
fall
be
out of that.
comfortable. You'd
You'd
fall
fall
out
out of
of
that
it.
tree. You'd hurt yourself. And what are you doing out there in the night? There's animals about, and you get bit up by bugs. I think that I have a little bit of that in myself in my old age. But
But the
yeah.
magic of it was more important to her than the practicality of it. She had, and I mean, the reason why she says that is she had decided what she was going to do if no one came to actually pick her up, because the train had come and gone, and she's sitting there waiting all alone. She's got the conductor there waiting with her, but he's kind of doing his own thing, and she's just sitting there, okay, well, I'm on my own. But she was so resilient. She just had decided, well, okay, if nobody comes to pick me up, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and I'm going to climb up in that cherry tree and I'm going to spend the night. And am I scared? No, I'm not scared as an 11-year-old girl. I've decided that it would be lovely. It would be magical. It's a beautiful place and I can handle this. And that really is the way that she took on any challenge in the world. She decided what was lovely and beautiful about it. And she decided that she could conquer it because it was an adventure. It was exciting. It was beautiful. One of the other things, I had fun today. I wrote down quotes, some of my favorite stuff from Anne. One of the things that I love about her is she said, "It's been my experience that you can nearly always enjoy things if you make up your mind firmly that you will." I think that's something that we were talking about earlier. Is I said that really has been one of the things that if there's anything that I have wanted to teach my children as a mom, as a homeschool teacher, it's that you can face just about anything in this world if you've decided, you make up your mind that you can. And everything about the way that Anne saw the world. I'm just gonna read quotes for a little while because, or at least a few here.
Yes.
It says, "Oh, it's delightful to have ambitions. I'm so glad I have such a lot, and there never seems to be any end to them. That's the best of it. Just as soon as you attain to one ambition, you see another one glittering higher up still. It does make life so interesting." And then this one. "Isn't it splendid to think of all the things there are to find out about? It just makes me feel glad to be alive. It's such an interesting world. It wouldn't be half so interesting if we knew all about everything, would it? There'd be no scope for imagination then, would there?" Everything in life she went, there's something to be learned here. There's something that I don't know about. There's scope for imagination. Even when she made mistakes and she felt horrible about letting down people that were counting on her, her response was always, "That's the nice thing about me. I very rarely make the same mistake twice. I'll always learn from it and keep on going." And that was her philosophy, that she never gave up on herself. She believed in her ability to keep going and to keep trying and to conquer and to learn, and to do so with joy because everything in life she could imagine. It's like, well, even her very first dress that she gets, it's
The
not very pretty.
the puffiest
No, no, no,
dress?
not the
No,
puff
okay.
sleeves one.
That's the one she
That's the thing.
wants.
She wanted dresses that were beautiful, that looked like the other girls, that had color. But Marilla, oh, the wonderful spinster Marilla, who saw life just as practically and as rigidly as she possibly could. They describe her yard in the book as being not a single thing. There's not a stick out of place. Rachel Lynde, her neighbor, thinks that Marilla sweeps the yard as often as she does her house. That's one of the first lines in the book is you're describing Marilla as somebody who her house would be very comfortable if it weren't so clean.
You'd be
It's
afraid of,
yeah.
you can't put your feet up. You'd be afraid of,
Marilla's not one to
yeah.
have ribbons or color or bows or any of the things that Anne, with her delicate little heart and her love of beauty, would see as attractive. So when Marilla makes her clothes, she makes them very plain and she gives them to him and she expects Anne to be delighted with them because they're new and they fit. And Anne's like, well, I can imagine that I like them. And Marilla's like, imagine that you like them? Don't you like them? She's like, well, they're not very pretty. But she's determined even so. Like, I love the fact that she's honest about it, but she also, she's not going to be ungrateful. She's going to decide that she imagines that she likes them
Right.
because anything in life can be conquered if you just use your imagination. She's going to imagine that she likes them. She's going to imagine that they're beautiful. She's going to imagine whatever it is that she needs in this world. Imagination will do it.
It's kind of it's a mechanism, a way of living, I think, for her. It's an adaptation, but it seems to suit her very, very well.
That's some of the other things that I pulled up. Is Albert Einstein. Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. And also attributed to Albert Einstein. I hope these are. If they're not, I apologize.
Right.
Logic will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere. And that definitely is true with Anne.
But it doesn't. This imagination, this ability that she has, it doesn't end with her growing up. You'd think, oh, this is it's a childlike thing, maybe a little childish, okay, something that I'm sure she'll grow out of it. But from what you've told me, she grows into an inspiring figure, a teacher, and a teacher that can spark the imaginations of young people. And she becomes a mother as well.
Later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she never loses that ability to
No.
look at things in that way. So it wasn't just a thing the childlike thing we do when we're kids, the imagination. It was infused in who she was, and no matter where her years took her, she still had that as a part of her. I think that's admirable. That's something to want to be like.
She was somebody that drew people to her because of that resilience, because of that imagination, because of her ability to see the beauty in the world and to call it out. Not only was she a teacher, she was a writer. I don't know, like that's one of the things that when we were talking about this, we want to focus on the positives, but also I do want to talk a minute about Anne with an E because
it was a Canadian broadcasting adaptation of Anne of Green Gables. Put that in quotes. You might, I don't know. And it was on Netflix for a little bit, I
it was on
believe.
Netflix, yeah. It was a Netflix original.
They may have coded
I
it.
think like it was done for Netflix.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
I think so. I think. Could be wrong. It went for 3 seasons, got canceled before the 4th, and it was one of those really, really polarizing shows, I think. There were a lot of people that really loved Anne with an E. There were a lot of people that really hated it. I was one of those that really hated it. So, spoiler. The reason why I hated it was twofold. For one thing, they just took Anne and made it something that it wasn't. And it was unrecognizable from my view. They took it because it became all about feminism. Just
And other
these
modern ideas as well.
right. It's one of those that, like we said with the newest adaptation of Little Women,
We did talk about that,
we
yes.
talked about that, just kind of infusing these modern ideas onto a into a historical setting, and how it's really jarring when you do that, when you're taking something that doesn't really fit into that time period and you're just putting it there because you want to explain to modern audiences why these issues have always been important. It's like that's kind of what it seems like, is they're going, oh yeah, well, this is important now and it was important back then, but it wasn't. Feminism, yeah, there are feminist themes in Anne of Green Gables.
It's very proto. It's very
They
early
talked about,
days. It's
I
not,
mean,
yeah,
this was going on around the time when in Canada they were voting on, women getting the vote. And
suffragette movement. Yeah.
so all of those themes are in there. You have some political themes that are in there, but it wasn't something that was just, it definitely didn't look the way that it looks in Anne with an E. They talked about LGBTQ issues and lots of different things that just, modern day audiences go, these things are really important, so we're going to put them in all of our shows, is the way that it feels like, or what it seems like their mindset is. But they kind of co-opted this strong female character who's intelligent, who's got this tongue on her, and they went, oh yeah, Anne would be a feminist. She would be a really enthusiastic feminist. And then they made all of the episodes of Anne with an E about that, is what it seems like. And even if she was a feminist, it's not what modern day versions of feminist are anyway. She was, you see in Anne this just, it's effortless. They don't have to hit people over the head with the themes in these books because it fit within the story and within the time. And I think that that's something that people have forgotten how to do. It is how to actually express themselves in a way that's not like, that's just kind of subtle and flows and doesn't like bang people over the head with your idealism.
And another thing, that this is something that affects a lot of these different shows and these movies and things like that, is progression.
Mm.
Is you look at a timeline of, okay, there was a history to a movement for a particular, to uplift a particular, like a gender or race or a particular type of philosophy. There is a timeline with that, and it grew over time. It developed, and as people got their voice and da da da. But what you're doing is you're taking all the voice that later parts of the movement, modern, even in the 60s, 70s, you're putting all those voices in the voices of the early part of the movement. So we wouldn't even be where we are now. It's almost like, it's, you know what it is? Revisionist history is
Mm.
done so often. I think it's almost like people don't want to do their research. Maybe they don't want to show those things of the past and maybe give them what glory, or encourage people to be like
Do
that.
you think they actually thought it was like that, or do you think that they know that it wasn't like that, but
Here's our chance to.
they're trying to tell a story for now? They're not trying to just retell those old stories. They're trying to repackage them.
I wonder if they think that no one's going to talk about a faithful adaptation. They're going to talk about around the water cooler. They're going to talk about this thing that really, that had these ideas in it. What that causes people to do is to completely just, it's the story in name only. I mean, they're doing it so often now that people are like, can you just do a really good adaptation of it? Or some people are saying, I wish they would do an adaptation of the book that I'm reading. It's really good. And then there's the other side that goes, they're going to screw it up, aren't they? Even ones that try really hard and have good faith on this, they want to do it faithfully. They're still going to mess up. But there's a difference between Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. I know how you feel about that, and Anne with an E. There's a big difference there.
Mm-hmm.
There's at the core of one, there's a faithfulness to at least the
Yeah.
feeling and the heart of what Tolkien was trying to do. On the other one, I don't know if Lucy Maud Montgomery would recognize what story they were trying to tell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think so. Because when I read Anne of Green Gables, I see a girl who, yes, she experienced hardship. She was asked to care for multiple sets of twins is, her thing. She's like, she always had to deal with all of these kids, parents who were overworked, who overworked her. She didn't a lot of times have, she had nothing given to her a lot of times. She wasn't provided with clothing that fit. She wasn't provided with enough food. She wasn't provided with care or love or any of the things that her little heart longed for till she met Marilla and Matthew. And that was the thing that Marilla might have been and or not understood the necessity of beauty. She was but she loved. She understood that Anne's heart had been starved for love. Even though Matthew was kind of at the very beginning, he was recognized by Anne as a kindred spirit, as someone who saw just the poetry in the world, I think, is what she was looking for in those kindred spirits. Other people that saw poetry in the world around them and that loved it for that.
I liked the actor. If he's doing it justice, I liked his eyes and his
Mm,
quiet smile. He wasn't a loud person. He made you feel heard,
mm-hmm,
and he was very subtle with his humor. It's almost like it almost wasn't even there if you didn't know to look for it, but it was there.
mm-hmm.
But I think it was a contrast to Marilla, and she's a little bit more,
Marilla
more
was just practical.
volume.
She valued practicality above all, I think, but she understood how practical it was to love. And Anne changed Marilla just as much as Marilla changed Anne, if not more so.
I actually the story that I kind of connect with more with Anne of Green Gables when I watched it or when you read it
Hmm.
was the relationship between Marilla and Matthew and Anne.
Hmm.
Maybe it's because I'm a dad that I connect with that part more than I connect with the Anne Gilbert kind of thing. So I don't.
Well, I think that that's the first story that you see. You see how much just finding two people who, yes, they had gotten somebody and they wanted somebody to help them, but they weren't lazy themselves, just looking for someone else to do all of the work. They wanted, yes, they wanted Anne to help out and to pitch in, but they loved and they gave and they were willing to provide everything that she needed. The first thing that they did was they went, okay, you need to go to school, you need clothes, you need to go to church. You have this moment of Marilla realizing that Anne is basically a heathen, was the words that she used, that she had never prayed before. That's another one of the quotes that I did
Yeah, yeah,
was
that's connection.
when Anne is asked by Marilla to say your prayers, Anne goes, oh, everybody always says to say prayers, but I never really understood the point of it. She goes, if I really wanted to pray, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd go out into a great big field all alone, or in the deep, deep woods, and I'd look up in the sky, up, 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 into that lovely blue sky that looks as if there was no end to its blueness. And then I'd just feel a prayer. This is someone who she'd not been taught about God. She hadn't been to church every week like all of the other kids in that area had. She didn't know all of the verses and all of the Bible stories, but she knew enough to know that when you look at the world and the beauty in this world, that inspires worship. And her heart responded to that beauty by going, God, you are good. And just that whole thing of feeling a prayer, that was to me one of the first things that I had ever really heard of what it meant to just be so overwhelmed by what God has done that you couldn't help but respond with thanks.
And it came from her heart.
Mm-hmm.
So words fail,
Yeah.
and when words fail, you just feel a prayer. You were saying that, I was thinking, there will come a day, this is Jesus says, he says, there will come a day when those who he seeks worshipers, and those worshipers will worship him in spirit and
In
truth.
truth.
So it's not just an outward display, and I'm just chanting this chant that we do. It's he wants the true from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he seeks. And so it's interesting that even though she hasn't had the Bible teaching that maybe Marilla has had or Matthew has had,
She
she's
understood something
reflecting
at a heart
at a
level.
heart level, yes,
Mm-hmm.
a Christ-like way of
Yeah.
praying.
It changed the way, because Marilla could teach her the words of a prayer, but she didn't teach Anne how to pray. I think that's something that just that truth, that hidden truth that was in there of like it's not about the words, it's about what you're feeling. It's about where your heart is. If your heart's not in the words, then the words don't mean anything.
And the cathedral that she chose was one not made of human hands.
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking about my mom real quick, and she walks on the beach and she prays and she says, this is my church." So she's talking to God as she walks up and down the beach, and
Mm-hmm.
what better place, because the lapping of the waves, the ocean, and what God has made, and here you are in awe of that, and then you just are just, God, speak to me, and there's not anything between you and you and your maker.
I think that the way that nature is described in Anne is really, really beautiful. I think that just, you're reading through it and you don't realize that you're absorbing poetry in this prose. It's definitely not your typical prose just because of the descriptions. And it's not you see in Tolkien, it's the descriptions of his world, and he'll sit there and describe a tree for 10 pages, but
It feels that way. I don't know
it
if that's
does.
exactly, but
It's not the same. And you get that inspiration of the beauty in a lot of different books, especially when you're describing a fantasy place. But this was describing the real world. I've always thought I think it makes every single person that reads these books want to move to Prince Edward Island. I think that's
yeah,
a byproduct. Oh man, wouldn't that be fun?
yes,
I would love to move there.
it is.
Maybe just visit, but oh,
That is what I think MacDonald and Montgomery do, is inject some magic into life.
hmm
Whereas MacDonald crafts a world in which magic is in the real world, Montgomery makes the real world magic.
hmm
And you could go along and you could see a tree and you could see the petals falling off of it and go, "Oh, well, fall's coming. I'm going to have to sweep up the dead leaves." But how Anne would look at it, and also because Anne's words are L.M. Montgomery's words, they suddenly are infused with something mysterious or something singular and magical. And I think that's, you seem to have a lot of magical stuff from your
yeah.
the readings in your
Well,
childhood.
you see all over the place. I'm so glad that I live in a world where there are Octobers. That was Anne. So many people. That's like the mantra of all of the fall loving girlies out there who are just like, oh, fall's the best time of the month. Well, yeah, but I think Anne liked every season, but she could see the beauty in every season. But yeah, I think October's, you know, those are amazing. You see the oh, it was November, the month of crimson sunsets, parting birds, deep sad hymns of the sea, passionate wind songs in the pines. Anne roamed through the pineland alleys in the park, and as she said, let that great sweeping wind blow the fogs out of her soul. That was after she had kind of worked herself trying to get, I don't remember if that was after she got through her first couple of years of college, she graduated, or if that was after she went and got her teaching license. I think that might have been after she got her teaching license. Yeah, I mean, that's another one of the things. It's like she worked hard. Yes, she was intelligent, but she also dove into her studies. She worked hard. She was passionate about everything that she took on to do. And I guess that's another, going back to just if there's anybody that I ever wanted to be or wanted to teach my kids how to be like, it was Anne. And it was because of that, just the ability to see the beauty in the world around you, the ability to imagine, to use your imagination to overcome any obstacles that you faced, the hard work ethic that she had, and the way that she inspired other people to learn, to grow. One of the things that you don't see the in the movies or any of the adaptations that I've seen done
Mhm.
is you don't see the children that she interacted with. Some of the special children. You see some of the school children. You see that she was, a good teacher and that she was beloved, but they kind of skip over a little bit. Marilla actually adopted a set of twins after Anne. Did you know that? Well, you probably knew it because we read the book somewhat, but I think you've forgotten.
I remember
Davy
more
and
than I forgot.
Daisy. Do you remember Davy and Daisy?
No, not
Yeah. You
specifically.
don't get it because they're not in the movies.
I'm a visual guy myself.
But Davy and Daisy are these two that Marilla takes in and Anne helps out with. And it's adorable the way that they're described. Daisy is just the perfect little princess that always follows the rules and does everything right. She has no imagination. But Davy's a little hellion. He is into everything. He's got this wild imagination. He doesn't always follow the rules. He, is not always the nicest. He gets into scrapes, but Anne connects with him.
I can see why the way you describe it.
Yeah.
Sounds like Anne when she was a little rough around the edges.
And I don't know that Anne was ever quite like Davy, but
No.
Anne loves just the passion that Davy lives his life with. And then you've got another little boy that is one of her students that you kind of see, you deep dive into the whole storyline with Paul Irving. Paul Irving was someone that came to live with his grandmother, I believe. His father was widowed, that Paul had lost his mother young. And Paul is just another kindred spirit. He's one of those very sensitive souls. So you see this contrast of boyhood. You've got Davy, who's imaginative, he's constantly getting into scrapes, loves Anne with all his heart, and Anne loves him. Then you see Paul Irving, who's this very sensitive soul, very imaginative, who's very much like Anne was himself. He's sweet, he's kind, he always follows the rules, but his imagination also makes him seen as kind of the odd one out. He's different from all the other children. He's a writer at heart. He sees the magic in the world, and Anne loves him and he loves Anne. And it's just like all of these different people that she's seeing. And yeah, even with Daisy, oh, she loved Daisy and Daisy loves her. She's able to connect with all of these people and love them and see the beauty in their unique souls. Some of them she connects with more than others, but Paul is the one that says, I think the violets are little snips of the sky that fell down when the angels cut out holes for the stars to shine through. And the buttercups are made out of old sunshine. And I think the sweet peas will be butterflies when they go to heaven. You've just got this little boy who he sees the poetry. He makes up stories about seashells at the beach. Yeah, I love these characters. You can tell I'm just sitting here going, "Oh, I love them so much." But they captured my imagination as a child. And they were the role models that I had as like, this is who I want to be. I want to be someone that can see the beauty in the everyday. And I want to be one who tries with all my heart, who can endure anything, who can find the fun in the mundane task because of imagination. I don't know. I think that I passed that, or I tried to pass that on to our kids too.
I can see those in all of them, little glimpses. Some more than others, some, but it's always there.
And I think that, just bouncing back to Anne with an E, one of the things that the really big things that I think that they missed
Missed opportunity.
with Anne is it felt like they kind of made out her imagination because, she had imaginary friends because she never had actual friends. They kind of painted it like it was a trauma response.
Coping mechanism.
Right. That it was something that kind of to be pitied that she lived in this imaginary world. And to me, that was never it. Yes, she experienced trauma, she experienced abuse as a child, but I don't think that caused her imaginary world. I think that her imaginary world was something that was always there and would have always been there no matter what she had experienced. I think that that was a part of of her personality because it was something that even after she healed, even after she found love and she found real friends and all of kind of everything went right in her world, it was still at the core of who she was. She never grew out of that imaginary world. It was something it was who she was. And it helped her through the trauma. I think that she got through things more unscathed. It never touched her soul. None of the things that she experienced, none of the trauma, none of the hurtful words that she overheard directed towards her, nothing touched her because she was protected by this imagination that she had because she could just imagine that things were okay. She could imagine that she was experiencing love and that she was experiencing friendship. What are you going to do against somebody who you can't touch because they're able to just,
Rise above.
yeah.
No idea.
You can't get a
Unsinkable.
person like that
Yeah.
down. They can conquer anything that life throws at them. And I think that that was what they really truly missed. Even if they hadn't put all of the extra stuff in to Anne, I think they missed the heart of who she was. And that's just that untouchable soul that was a part of that really was because of the imagination that she had that saw the beauty and the hope with every new day because every day is a new day with no mistakes in it yet, right?
Right. So glad you've joined us here tonight. So glad you've joined us in our discussion about Anne of Green Gables.
Hopefully, some of my love for her and the reasons why have actually gotten across, maybe more than anybody ever wanted to know.
Maybe you'll pick up the book. It is easily accessible.
There's so much more. It's one of the things that I feel like the Anne movies, the one with Megan Fallows, is the ones that I've really fallen in love with. There are other good ones out there, but they do such a good job. I feel like Anne with an E doesn't quite get it, but the Anne of Green Gables and the Anne of Avonlea movies, they do. You get who I thought they were good adaptations of the book. But there's always so much more. Even when you have a good movie adaptation, there's always so much more to the world if you actually will pick up the books. And the story goes on. And yeah, you might just enjoy it. I would encourage those to everybody.
Hope to see you again next week when hopefully we will have some captivating imaginative discussions that soar above your normal mundane life and inject a little bit of magic into your everyday. I know that sounds really trite, but it's not. I really believe it. So we'll see you next time here at Weatherford Daze.